Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me once again. You're always most welcome. Today, a treat for us all, especially me. It's Matchbox March. We're celebrating 50 years of Matchbox kits, which obviously started in 1972. And we've had one or two treats. We've had lots of kits that have been donated or loaned to us. And this is one of the latter category, and you'll see why, because it's an absolute stunner. It's in great condition, this one. And it's the Lysander Mark 1 / Mark 3, the Westland Lysander. And it's also come from the same gentleman who loaned us, or sorry, gave me, in that case, the 72nd scale Lysander, the small one, the Mark 2. So we've got all the bases covered with the marks of Lysander here. And John Fogo, the gentleman I mentioned, he lives on the south coast of England, and he has sent this one through. Now this one particularly is one of the kits that he told me that his father had collected and put in the loft, and sadly his dad's passed away now. But you can understand the attraction. It's actually got a Toys R Us sticker. There's a company that was for those of you that are not in the UK, they're a big retail toy company. Supplier, and they went bust about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. So they're no longer with us. But it's got a price on it. There's no date, but there's a price on it of £4.96, which I reckon makes it early mid 90s. I think that makes it. So it's the 1/32 scale Lysander, a kit I've never seen before, never had, and I've got to be honest, this is the one I really wanted to review. One of my favourites that I've never actually seen, if you know what I mean, that I desperately wanted to see. So this is going to be quite a joy for me, and well, we'll see how we go. So, talk about the Lysander before we get into it. Obviously we talked about this briefly in the 72nd scale review I did. Basically the Lysander was developed to be a sort of ground support and tactical operations aircraft, where it was going to be used for artillery spotting, and also designed to drop bombs. And that little 72nd scale kit had got little bomb racks on these little gondolas that were attached to the undercarriage legs, but they were tiny bomblets. I mean, it was literally like dropping, I think I said, hand grenade sized bombs, you know, which they were. Not very effective, you know. Okay for dropping on infantry, I suppose, but not effective for anything else. And it was dropped because they sent them over to France in 1940 to prevent the fall of France, which we didn't prevent, sadly. And they weren't effective, and they were getting shot to pieces both by ground fire from the Germans and from the Luftwaffe with their Me-109 fighters. It only had a top speed of about 200 miles an hour, which is probably half what it needed. So yeah, they didn't fare well against a modern fighter. It's powered by a radial engine, Bristol Mercury engine, and it's got some interesting features on the aircraft, which I've learned a bit more about still since I did the last review. So it has some automatic actuating slats on the front of the wing. I don't think they're really featured in the kit very much. I don't think it goes into that sort of detail. But I've been reading about some of the things it got up to, some of the descriptions of it. It had some very unusual flight characteristics which helped it in the roles that it undertook, because it was in the Battle of Britain, moving on in history. They made it an air-sea rescue plane for spotting men in the water from shot down Spitfires and Hurricanes, etc. But it has some very interesting flight characteristics. I mentioned it's only got a low speed, but that's part of the low speed is also part of its great secret, which aided this aircraft in going on to become so special in the roles that it later occupied in the later part of the war. And I mentioned that how it helped the French resistance, particularly. Also in North Africa, I think they had a few of them used there, using them as spotters against Rommel's Africa Corps. But the great strength it had was it could fly at very low speed. It could actually fly as low, had a stalling speed of 65 miles an hour. And the characteristics of when you bring it into land, I mentioned it was short takeoff and landing. Well, yes, it very much is short takeoff and landing, and it was described by some of the pilots who flew her as almost not quite being like coming down in an elevator, but coming down an escalator, because they could bring it in at like 45 degrees and just drop it onto a field. A very sturdy aircraft with its big undercarriage, and it's a very not overly heavy and not overly complicated. It's sort of a workhorse, and it was able to take quite rough grassy strips and some not very well, prepared fields. It could land on any grassy field really, and it would come in at this very steep angle, and it could almost sort of drop out of the sky nearly and just plop down at 45 degrees, and then pick up a spy or drop one off to help the French resistance, for example, and then be off again, and again climb up at a very steep angle and be gone. So it had a lot of really clever attributes. It had flaps that enabled it to the flap and slat arrangement enabled it to have this almost escalator type flight characteristic on landing. So there we go. Has to be said, it's a very interesting aircraft, but without further ado, we will have a proper look at this absolute beauty now then. So this is the green range, obviously, the 32nd range, and we've got some smashing artwork on the sides. Let's bring you into this. Starts off showing you, and they've very much gone for the SOE spy colours, dark colours it seems. They've got some grey and some sort of, is it a black or is it a green? It's like a black colour, so it's very much low-key spy plane, covert operations for the SOE, this one. We've got a detailed internal cockpit, complete with the rear gunner. And then we've also got, on the Mark 1 version, they have actually got the thing I just spoke about, which is these, the bomblets, which are on the leg sponsons of the actual undercarriage, and complete with headlights built in. It's quite a good arrangement, didn't you? It's doing a lot of jobs. It's undercarriage, it's headlights, and it's a bomb carrying rack as well. So we're on PK504, and we've got three options here. We've got Lysander 3 from RAF 357. Special, what's that, SD? Special Flight, Special Division. It sounds like Black Ops, doesn't it, this? Being used in Burma, 1944-45. Then you've got the Mark 1 Lysander, which is very much, I think it might even be the same markings as the one that's in the smaller kit. Based at Odium, down in the south of England, in 1939. And that's got the bomb racks on it, of course. And I mentioned that John Fogo, that's generously loaned us this model, he used to live near Odium, and he's actually said that this kit was his dad's, and he's got a mind that he might like to build this kit in the not too distant future. I hope he does actually, but do I? Because you know what we say, this is a genuine original Matchbox, and I always jokingly say every time you build one of these you can't replace it. Every time you build one of these, another little angel dies. Okay, so you can't replace it, you can never go back. That's why I've not built that many of mine, obviously. But hey, I don't want to put him off because it's a nice kit. But maybe if he wants to keep it as perhaps to remind him of his dad, don't know. But you can always go for the Rebel option just to make the kit and then have a finished version. And you can have finished and unfinished together in a cabinet, couldn't you? It would look quite good. Anyway, just trying to throw out my own ideas, but take no notice, you do your own thing, John, it's absolutely fine. Right, let's try and zoom in because I missed a bit here, didn't I? The last one, this is the Special Operations Executive, Special Duties, aka Spying. The British SOE Intelligence Service, and this is at Tempsford. They also flew them off Newmarket. I don't know if it was off the race course, but it was certainly, they had a Lysander base at Newmarket, so there was, at the end of the day, these aircraft could fly from almost anywhere. They were such a versatile plane with a short takeoff and landing characteristic. It was easy to fly them anywhere. Anyway, without further ado, what have we got here? Special long range duties, special duties aircraft. Oh, I thought it was going to tell us about the kit. It doesn't say anymore. Okay, 1978. This came out. Ooh, what an absolute peach! Right, well, here we go then. There we go. By the way, the flap of the box was a little bit adrift when it arrived, so I think it's just the way they always are, because I've got one that's the same. So I did do a very subtle repair for you, John. You won't spot the repair. I've used some very subtle glue on the inside to put it back to its former glory, so it looks quite nice again. Then it wasn't too bad in the first place, to be fair. Just wanted a bit of TLC. Anyway, here we go. That's some nice bubble wrap to protect it there. We've got some instructions. We have got The colour plan, which is always nice, these colour plans, aren't they? Bit more detail, let's have a read of this. Why not? Why not? We always enjoy a nice bit of literature, don't we? This is what makes them so special, isn't it? Why can't they, I'm going to have a rant alert. Why can't the modern Chinese do this? It's not asking that much, is it? Look how well this was done. They did this as well in terms of giving you a bit of background as well as anybody, bar Wingnut Wings and Tamiya, frankly. And it amuses me that you've got these manufacturers pumping out kits costing £100 from China, and there's no writing in it at all. You can barely work out how to put the thing together because the instructions are so bad. And here we've got something from 1978 done properly. Anyway, rant over. Let's see what they say. I think the wording's a bit different from the small one. So it says, the Lysander was the first monoplane army cooperation aircraft used by the RAF. It was produced after careful study of service requirements at Westlands. The first flight took place in 1935 and it was delivered to squadrons by the start of 1938. At the outbreak of World War II, Lysander operations, which was some 90 aircraft in all, were immediately sent to France by the time of Dunkirk, but 50 had been lost to enemy action and 30 were damaged or otherwise destroyed. Oh my god, that left 10 planes? They got decimated, didn't they? In November 1940, a new Army Cooperation Command was formed, and as the Lysander had proved unsuited to the task, it was withdrawn. However, the Lysander was much more effective than other commands and was used for air-sea rescue, target towing and training. With its short landing and takeoff, it proved ideal for clandestine operations, and the fact that it flew in some 100 agents into occupied territory and brought out 139 of them. The aircraft was also used in cooperation with the Yugoslav partisans and in Burma. Although it failed in its original role, it became, by the ingenuity of its design and its remarkable flying qualities and the affection it generated amongst those who flew it, it achieves a reputation that's second to none. A total of 1,670 aircraft were built. That's a lot, isn't it? They obviously decided it was, once they just put it in the wrong role. They put in the wrong, the wrong plug in the wrong hole, weren't they? Basically, they found the right job for it and excelled at it. Having it as a bomber was, I don't know who thought that up. That was a crazy idea, wasn't it? Anyway, it's got some data here. It says the wingspan is 50 feet with a length of 30 feet. It's quite a big span, isn't it? A big bird, isn't it? It looks like an albatross in some respects. Speed, 55 miles per hour. I think it was 65, I think that's wrong. But anyway, let's say 60. To 220 miles per hour. Right? It's got 2 303 Brownings, 1 Vickers in the rear cockpit, and 2 more 303 Brownings in the rear cockpit. So it had weapons, I think, on both sides. Oh, okay. Right, there we go. Anyway, I think we'll not take it all out of the box at this moment. What we'll do is we'll move the box, we'll do things one at a time here. Otherwise it'll get a bit confusing. So, as we're on this colour guide, let's have a look. Colour plan. On this side we've got, this is the spooks, the special duties SOE. This is the dark, sort of black painted plane. I say black, is it black? Just check. Yes, it is. Calling it out as Humbrol 33 black, so XF1 or whatever. I think Tamiya rubber black would be ideal for this, to be quite honest, but anyway, here we go. Look at that. So yeah, fairly straightforward black. And it had a bit of gold on the front, the ring around the Bristol Mercury engine. And you've got the Berber one, which is a bit more colourful. I'm trying to remember what the colours were. It's got some strange colours on that, hasn't it? A bit purpley, sort of unusual, sort of Burmese jungle style. And then you've got the traditional brown and green for the Odium-based aeroplane, which is the one that's got the bombs. On the inside, zooming out for this because it's quite big. On the inside you've got your mini paint guide, so you've got your it's almost like a glider, the construction, isn't it? Look at that. Wild. That's cool, isn't it? And then you've got all your side panels. It's quite well done, this. You've got like radios and communications equipment, instrumentation, oxygen bottles, and then you've got your guns being painted up here, and your little bomblets, and you've got your pilot complete with his feet on the rudder pedals there, and then we've got the wheels and tyres and the engine cowling, exhaust, spinner and prop, and then storage boxes, and then the interior. Isn't that nice? That's really, really good. Love it. That's a good start, isn't it? Now then, the instructions, which strangely, I have to say, come in seem to come in 2 sheets. What's all this about? Why have we got 2 sheets? That seems odd. Is that correct? It's supposed to be 2 sheets? 22. Yep, I guess it is. Okay. A little bit mystifying. They've got 2 separate sheets. It's a bit like Great Wall Hobby. They all come apart and you don't know what sequence they're in, and there's no English written anywhere, and you have to assemble the instructions before you assemble the model. Anyway, let's just gently move that over there. So, there's step 1. Give us a clue. Come on. Which one are we on? Step 1. Here we go. So you're building up. Right, zoom in. Building up the all the framework that forms the cockpit interior, basically. Quite a lot of it. So you're building all that up. Then you're going to put the top on. It almost looks like you're building a glider at this point, doesn't it? It's like, it reminds me of a keel craft, flying, balsa model. Then you've got to build up your pilot. It comes in 2 parts. Then we've got. It looks like the fuel tank, in fact, isn't it? Fuel tank. Oh my God. So the pilot is basically like one of these World War One jobs, isn't it? The pilot is effectively sitting on the fuel tank. Look at that. Oh, okay. Rather you than me. Jeepers. Yep, that's the case. Anyway, building it up, putting him in his seat. He's got his control yoke there, and then you're building. You obviously put these panels in, don't you, at the beginning for the sides of the cockpit, the radio equipment and instrumentation, and then you bring that together and link it across to the other side, like so. Then you've got the chart table. The chart table. So this is what the co-pilot obviously must study the charts. He must act as navigator as well as gunner, and he goes through the charts while the pilot flies along. And then you pop him in there, and his instruments go in, and he goes in underneath, up in almost Thunderbird's fashion, doesn't he? Then you build up, and this is where it gets interesting, because I think we have 2 options here between the Mark 1 and the Mark 3. So the Mark 1 is a standard one, and it has this, it looks like radio equipment at the back, of stowage equipment, and you've got like a rotating table with magazines on it for the gun. That's quite cool. And then on the other version, later the Mark III, it doesn't have this rotating table, and it's got twin Brownings. So that's why, that's the difference in the guns. So it's got double protection in terms of a bit more heavy armament. It would be helpful if it actually explained the guns, but anyway. So it's pretty clear. I mean, the instructions are clear enough about what to do. There's no problem there. And then you've got some stowage boxes that go in at the side. Very sensibly, Matchbox is showing you here how it should look, which is very nice. Who does that remind me of? There was one, was it Wingnut Wings or somebody else that was often showing you how to look after it? Somebody else has done it more recently, haven't they? Can't think who it was. Then we've got the stowage boxes. So the stowage boxes do go in. That's a bit strange. I've done it as a separate step. Okay. Yes, these stowage boxes do go in here. Then you're building it, your cowling and your radial engine front. Putting that all together there, complete with your cooling system. And then you've got your exhaust here. Then you bring it all together and sandwich all this cockpit you've built in between the 2 fuselage sides. And then, I get the right order, 15, here we go. Then you're building up your undercarriage sort of fairing that goes around your undercarriage, and you've got your tail and your tail planes being built up, and then you've got these very sturdy legs for the actual undercarriage fairings, and your wheels and tyres itself going in there. And then of course your fairing or sponson that goes attached to that with the bombs on it, if you're doing the Mark 1. They call it wheel spats, okay. Like shoes. And then you've also got this huge fuel tank, long range fuel tank to go in. Sorry. Fuel tank, there we go. And then we're building up the propeller, which is nicely done in separate parts, so they've done that really well, haven't they? For the Mark 1 it has a much shorter spinner, so you have to remove the shaded area here because it's only got a little it's a bit like the Spitfire, isn't it? Well, that had a very rounded short spinner, and then it became longer later. Then you've got your ailerons going in here. There's flaps and slats are not included as such, they're not separate or movable, I'm afraid. Then you're building your wing up. And then here, we're on to the actual the assembly, putting in your tail planes and your rudder, putting on your canopy front and rear, and the side glass, and then you're attaching your engine with the spinner and the prop at the front, plus your undercarriage going in. And for the special duties Lysander, you remove one of the back end of the glass here. Obviously, because that's the passing secret documents back and forth through the window. Literally, yeah. And then at the back, it suddenly goes into portrait format for some bizarre reason. That's very odd. I guess they couldn't fit it on. Why didn't they just scale the drawing down? I don't know. But anyway. So then you've got. Seems to be a repeat, doesn't it? There seems to be a repeat of that step. That's a bit odd. Yeah, they're repeating the previous step with some slight differences. It's a complete repeat of the previous step, but they're now saying remove the shaded area for the Mark 1 Lysander because obviously it's a longer piece of glass. Okay, so that has to be removed. So they're trying to. It's a bit clumsy the way Matchbox did that. I'm surprised it's not like that. A little bit confusing, but yes, I think I get what they mean. But why they had to repeat, and they couldn't just have said that on the other page, I really don't know. But anyway, we won't get too bogged down by that. But visually, it's clear enough. It's just odd that it shows you assembling things you've already assembled in the previous step. That is kind of strange. Anyway, here we've got the main wings going on, and they've got like a spar. As you can see, it looks like a good design. So you've got a spar in this construction of the framework that forms the cockpit, and these wings sort of click onto it, I guess. It's almost Tamiya-like, isn't it? Well, not quite, but you know what I mean. And you've got your big cabane struts, the main struts that support the wing weight and attach it to the actual undercarriage. And then finally, you've got, for the special duties aircraft only, you have a step ladder that is attached on the side. So these spies can run up it quickly and then take off and be gone. There we go. Whoops. Zoom that in a bit more. See it? Yeah. And that's it. And then you're done. Lysander completed. Right then. Well, I have to say, apart from that slight confusion with the instructions, I think that it's almost like they realised after they've printed, you can tell, they've got to that step and thought, oh, we didn't say, you need to cut that little bit out. What they should have done is nowadays you'd get like a little ticket, wouldn't you, with a correction sheet that would be in there and say, oh, you need to do this, by the way. Anyway, let's have a look at the plastic. Now, I've taken the liberty, John, when I first opened this, I reeled in horror because the clear parts were just roaming about. So I've put them in a nice little IKEA bag for you, just to protect them. And it's got plenty of room in it, so should keep everything in a nice shape, he says. And you can get it out of the bag. There we go. Look at that. What a nice big clear parts sprue that is. Look at this. Yeah, well, So you've got your front windscreen here, it's just slightly off the sprue, but I won't mess about it because I don't need to brake. The main sort of rear canopy here, and then you have this sort of glasswork like a greenhouse in the middle. And this is the bit that you have to cut off, this final pane here, it's like a triangle. You have to cut that away completely if it's the spy plane, because they hand each other messages, secret messages through the window. I guess that's when they're dropping off something, vital documents like false documents and things like that, and then they're taking straight off without physically getting out. A drop off, you know. Then you got all these are the windows for the main headlights that are on those fairings on the legs, on the undercarriage legs, and then you've got the sort of central top bit of where the gun placement is at the back, and there we have it. It's quite a nice sprue. It's big, isn't it? A little bit yellow. Probably wants a little bit of dipping or something, but slight yellowing. I think that's just the nature of the plastic that Matchbox used, really. Not sure how super clear it was to start with, actually. Anyway, there we go. Well, that was quite a good start, wasn't it? There we are. It's all safe there. Then we've got some instructions, complete with its actual tissue on it as well, which I won't remove, other than just to show that it's still in fairly good condition. Those are usable for sure, no problem. You'll be okay with them. I should just say to John, I've also actually popped in the box for you a tiny little one of mine to help you with these decals. Silica gel pack, which takes all the moisture out and helps you protect your decals and instructions. So that will hopefully give a bit more life in terms of years to those, because it always sort of goes off on Matchbox. They always seem to have this degradation of the tissue, goes very yellow, and then it bonds to the decal, and then you've had it really, because they are pretty much knackered at that point. Anyway, moving on. Here we have got a slight detachment from the sprue there. That's a little bit away. We have got the main sprue with the fuselage halves, and this looks really nice. Have a look at this. Wow, you've got that lovely ribbing effect, done very nicely. It's got quite a nice surface quality to it as well. It's got a nice sort of like a satiny finish, whereas it's a lot more glossy over here, which is quite realistic because it's basically fabric, isn't it? And you've got your big Bristol Mercury engine cowlings here, and your tailplane, sorry, elevators I should say, there. Or is that the rudder? Sorry, that's the rudder in fact, isn't it? Hard to tell by the shape, it's the rudder. Then you've got your little bomblets, which as I say just look like a hand grenade to me with a tail. They're not big. And we've got the spinner, which as I mentioned, if you use the Mark 1 you need to chop it because it's a little bit longer than needed. And then you've got a couple of, you've got the brace supports there, pylon if you will, for the fuel tank. It's really nice though, very very nice. That's absolutely crack on, that. Smashing. Wow, love it. Very nice sprue. Don't damage it. It's a bit gentle on its mounting points. Right, so next one we have got is this one. And here we've got quite a lot of the black parts, so we've got, unfortunately there's been some scuffing in the box here. But we've got the external fuel tank, we've got the cowling rings, we've got the fairings for the actual excuse me, undercarriage, and we've got your legs for your undercarriage here, and then we've got the framework for the side of the cockpit, and there's a part off the sprue there. Oh, here it is. We have got a part adrift, which looks like it is the little sponsons, or spats I think they call them in the instructions. There we go. The spat has come off. I'll just put that to one side. Here's the other one. That's the spat on which the little bomb rack goes. There. Yeah, it's nice. No flash, no nonsense. Looks great. Then we have got propellers, which look really nice. I've got to say, it reminds me of the BF109E, the way they've formed them. Beautiful. You've got exhaust over here. Sounds like I've got a Lysander going over my head at the moment. Hear that? And we've got the seat here, which has got nice sort of leather shaping to it, ridges. This is part of your radio equipment on the side. That goes in the side panel of the fuselage cockpit. Here's your guns, single or the twin 303s, and of course you've got your pilot and your gunner here, which don't look very different, I've got to say, but that's quite a nicely figured one. I mean, some of the ones you get today are worse than that, I've got to be honest. He seems to have a very big head, or is it my imagination? His head looks a little bit out of proportion to me. But other than that, it's superb. Look at the seat belts on his back, on his straps and things. That's really well done. Then we've got the engine. Here's your Bristol Mercury engine, radial. That's been done nicely. This is a nice kit, very nice. Yeah, and you got instrumentation here, the main instruments. There's your furtive little ladder for the SOE people to run up quickly. For your agents, you got some arms here, not firearms but real arms, and then you got your fuel tank, which the pilot rather bravely sits upon effectively, and then you've got your undercarriage wheels here. There's your map table for the back of the cockpit. That's a lovely sprue actually, I really like it. Got the trim wheel there, trim wheel here. That's superb, really is nice. Yes, I'm impressed. Very impressed. Right, then we've got some fairly big sprues. Oh, we've got another part off here. What's that from? I think that's... I know what that is. That must be the spinner, surely. Where did that come from then? Sorry, we've got this little tiny one here. It's the it's part of the spinner or the propeller shaft, central shaft. I don't know where that came off. It's not just fallen off. It was already in the box. I think. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. It's this one. It's 35. I think it belongs there. Yeah, it belongs there, doesn't it? You can tell. That's where it goes. Yeah. See, there. So I'll put that. In fact, what I'll do, I'll put those spare parts that are roaming around loose. I will put them with the clear parts so they won't get lost. No, hang on, because it might scratch them. That's a bad idea. Let's not do that. We don't want to scratch the clear parts. I'll find a little bag for you, John, and somewhere I'll pop that in. No problem. Before it goes back in the post. Now then, let us just move that aside and let's have a look at these huge wings that it's got. Massive. I mean, they're really big, and you've got these huge cabane struts, which supporting strut for all the weight between the wing and the undercarriage. I mean, it's almost built like a biplane, monoplane sort of hybrid. This, you know, the style of it's very like an early monoplane, isn't it? But look at that. The surface is nice. You've got the ribbing. That's really well done. Love it. Some of these big parts are a little bit scuffed. What I might do is just put some tissue in between them, John, before I send this back to you, because I just don't want them to get any more scuffed. I think it would be a good thing to separate them so they're not rubbing on each other, the plastic. And we've got, finally, last sprue here, and this is the other, so this is the other side of the wing, so the bottom wing. In fact, no, it's actually, each sprue's got one wing on it, so there we go. And then you've got your elevators and your tailplanes all together there as well. Oh, that's really nice, isn't it? It's a lovely kit. I have to say, it's a nice one. It's a really nice one. It's got a detail to it that some of the others didn't have. I think the detail is a bit better than it was on the 109E, which I've got a couple of examples of, and the Spitfire, of course. But this has got a little bit more finesse to it somehow, a little bit more details crept in there, which is good. Pop that back in there, and then I think we can have our verdict. I must say that I am I'm impressed. Well, I know what you're thinking. He always says that, it's Matchbox, isn't it? And he's mad at them. But beyond that, though, I am actually more impressed than I thought I would be. As I say, the 109E, there's some detail here that isn't on the 109E. It's a little finer, a little bit sharper. And I just think they've gone a little bit further with this one. This is a later model, because the 109 came out in a year earlier, I think 77. So yeah, that's what's really happened. Tell you what we'll actually do when I pack these up, I'll use these as interleaving sheets, because that'll work, won't it? That'll solve the problem of any rubbing. There we go, that's okay. Super. Well, there we have it. What a beauty. Well, I think that has been a bit of a treat, actually. And it is, I've been told before, by others that know, who've got the kit, that it was a real nice one. I'm going to give it 9.5 out of 10. There was one or two things in the instructions that was a little bit confusing, I thought, at times. So it just loses half a point, but it's absolutely superb, that is. It's as close as a 10 out of 10 as you get, and I wouldn't give 10 out of 10 to the others, the other two I've got. I think you can look back, I think I gave them 9 out of 10. I think 9.5, I think that deserves it. It's got a little bit more detail, a little bit more finesse. Nice kit, can build that up to look really good, you know, a little bit of aftermarket, some seat belts and things here and there, and maybe a little touch of resin on one or two bits of the instruments and things. Fabulous. Absolutely beautiful. What a stunner. So, 9.5 out of 10, that is my verdict. Hope you agree. Thank you very much for watching, and please give me 10 out of 10, or 9.5 at least, with a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. There's lots more stuff about Matchbox and other models and other things that may be of interest. We've got some military aviation in there too. Real stuff. And if you would like to get an early warning, please ding the notification bell, smash that like button to make sure that I get all the support I can get. And if any of you watching this think, oh well, I've got the Dauntless, because that's another one I'd like to see, and any of the Sea Venom, you know, Tiger Moth, anything like that, please by all means send them along, and I'll very carefully, as you see, I don't handle them with my bare hands ever. I use the gloves, handle them very carefully, and I'll pack it again very, very carefully to make sure that it goes back. All be marked up as fragile. Should get back to you absolutely safe and sound, no problem at all. But if you'd like me to review any of your stuff, I'm very open to doing that. I'd love to do it, especially the ones that I haven't done before. And this is a prime example, and has been absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed doing that, to be honest. I can now, and the beauty of these is that, like you know, I can look back on the video in the future, and you've always got it to look back on. You know, it's always available to see, and it's a stunning little kit. That's probably one of the best ones so far that I've seen of the Matchbox 132 kits. I think that's probably the best one. You may disagree. If you do, send me yours along and we'll have a look. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Appreciate all your time. Hope to see you again in the not too distant future. We've got a few other things coming up in the next sort of month or so. I think you'll find of great interest, some more historic stuff. Maybe an odd kit review still to come. Please stay tuned, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon indeed. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining me. Take care of yourselves, and bye for now.